Good afternoon, everyone. It is October 29th. Gonna talk about Israel. I have a map update at the end of the narrative I'm about to provide on the news going on, but we'll get started with some news around Israel and their fight with Hamas. Officials with the United Nations mission in Gaza Strip are claiming that it has become total chaos in and around the Gaza Strip area, with several warehouses used by the organization having been broken into and looted for flour and basic survival supplies over the last few hours. Now, according to both Arab and Western officials, including officials from Egypt and Lebanon, there is credible evidence supporting Israeli allegations that Hamas has been hoarding essential supplies such as food and fuel. Over the years, Hamas has constructed an extensive network of tunnels beneath Gaza Strip where they have stored everything necessary for prolonged conflict. This strategic stockpiling, while hurting the Palestinian population, could become a significant challenge for Israel, especially during this initial stages of this limited incursion that the Israelis are taking. Officials have detailed the extent of Hamas's preparedness by showing that they possess vast quantities of fuel, both for their vehicles and rockets. Furthermore, Hamas has secured large caches of ammunition, explosives, raw materials to produce more weapons, and other things such as food supplies, water, and medicine are a part of their reserves. A senior Lebanese official estimated that Hamas, with a force strength ranging between 35,000 and 40,000 members, has stored enough provisions to sustain a conflict for 3 to 4 months without the need for external replenishment. These claims are not just from officials out of Lebanon and Egypt, as I'm about to talk about, or even Western intelligence agencies. First-hand accounts from recently released hostages corroborate these allegations. One of the hostages shared witnessing vast reserves of supplies, suggesting that Hamas might be withholding these from Palestinian civilians. Samir Gattas, an Egyptian strategic analyst with close ties to Gaza, commented on the priorities of Hamas. He said their emphasis is on ensuring ventilation for their tunnel system and resources for firing rockets and maintaining command and control. Gattas was skeptical about any willingness of Hamas to provide food or other essential resources to the Palestinian civilians. He pointed out in his criticism, stating that Hamas's primary concern is in the welfare of its own fighters, often to the detriment of the Palestinian populace. In addition, Palestinian militias are telling Gazan civilians to remain rather than evacuating towards the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Hamas explicitly labeled any Israeli ground incursion as unsuccessful in order to increase the likelihood that Gaza civilians would stay. The Saraya al-Quds and Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine asserted that the Israeli Defense Force encountered substantial resistance and setbacks. A statement that Israel representatives refuted multiple times, stating there were no casualties by Israel in these recent clashes and incursions I'm going to talk about here in a bit. As hostilities intensified, Israel issued an emergency directive urging residents of Gaza Strip, particularly in the north, to move southward, at least temporarily. The IDF has issued Arabic language urgent pleas to residents of the northern Gaza Strip via flyers, etc., asking them to temporarily evacuate south. The northern region even saw flyers being distributed by hand. However, Hamas has previously told the local populace to stay put, dismissing earlier Israeli warnings as psychological warfare. The actual reason is Hamas gets propaganda boosts when they parade their dead human shields around. Israel wants civilians out, Hamas doesn't. It's the same reason Hamas uses its underground tunnel network to build bases under hospitals and mosques. Now, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, takes the same stance by accusing Hamas of leveraging civilians as human shields. He asserted that such tactics deliberately place civilians in perilous situations to safeguard Hamas's military resources and arsenal. A massive departure of civilians from the northern Gaza Strip could potentially expose and jeopardize Hamas's military strategy of hiding behind regular civilians, and therefore it is not conducive for Hamas to have civilians leave. Senior leaders in Hamas are continuing to state today they are willing to release all of the hostages they captured on October 7th if the Israelis release 6,000 to 10,000 members of Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which are in prison in locations across Israel. Israel obviously won't go for this because to release 6,000 to 10,000 Hamas fighters for 250 mostly captured civilians essentially doesn't really do anything for the strategic balance of power in this situation. Furthermore, Hamas can't leverage the civilians because the minute those civilians are murdered by Hamas, they once again prove how monstrous they are. and Israel will continue to fight anyway with a stronger mandate at that point. Those civilians will stay alive until Hamas puts them in a position where they can be killed by Israel and paraded in front of the Western media. So looking at the map, we are zoomed in on the northern part of Gaza Strip right now, and there are 3 locations where Israel has conducted a very limited incursion and invasion into Gaza Strip. Along the coastline here, that is also turning towards Beit Lahia here, a push through the walls and barriers that has been, the gaps have been created over the last couple of days to take Bet Hanun right here, and then also along this route here. And en route, they're likely going to be taking this and then setting this as a base of operations zone to expand further south to take the larger Gaza metro. And this strategy, rather than just a massive movement into Gaza, was likely developed with the assistance of the United States, who actually has quite a bit of experience in dealing with ejecting terrorist organizations from urban areas. I mean, you look at Iraq, in Baghdad, Fallujah, Baquba. You look in Afghanistan. There's a lot of history there of the U.S. having to do this very thing that Israel is doing right now. So probably at the suggestion of the U.S., I know the U.S. Defense Department has been working with Israel on how to conduct this. They have, instead of doing a mass invasion, are looking to create cities, or take cities, clear them, establish a foothold in those cities, establish a method for maintaining security in those cities, and then moving southward in a sweeping motion with potential flanking operations coming through the security barriers, because gaps have been created. But that's kind of what we're looking at right now. It's limited. It's not a full-scale invasion, but we are still in just the second or possibly third phase of this operation, and future phases could potentially see a greater mass invasion by Israel, especially if they're trying to speed up the operations and things like hostages get killed or something like that, as I spoke before.